Hello and welcome to this week's beginner's guide. This week we will be talking about the growth NPC faction by discussing all of the units, the mods, and the doctrine which can be bought from the growth dwelling. The first unit we're going to talk about is the growth worker bee, which is quite easy to kill off with only 30 HP and 1 armor. Being a flying unit means he can't take armor, and only having a melee attack means that the AI will run this unit into combat pretty early on and get it killed off quite easily, even in battles which you should win without any losses when you've got like 3 stacks of 6 units, 18 against just 4. Sometimes this unit will just run in head first and get itself killed off really quickly. But if you can manual combat with this unit and keep him alive until it gets a lot of experience and some more survivability, maybe mod it, give it some mods to increase its defense, then it becomes a pretty useful little healer. This regeneration pollination has a cooldown of 3 turns, which means that if you hold him back, he can heal up some other units pretty often for quite a bit of HP, and then being able to life drain enemy units is pretty useful. It will allow this unit to regain some of its HP if somebody gets behind it and gets behind your line and starts doing some damage in the back line. I think, yeah, its melee attack also comes with allergic pollen, which can create an allergic reaction. And I do want to double check what that actually does. I'm terrible at spelling. I can do this. I got it in front of me. Allergic, there we go. So once you got that, it gives you a weakness to biological damage and kinetic damage, meaning that if you use those damage channels, you're gonna get quite a bit more damage. It doesn't mean 2 points of damage extra for each attack because of the way damage is calculated. It has an exponent in the calculation, so it's not just like a 1-to-1 thing. So this is actually quite a bit better than you may be thinking. It basically strips away 2 points of armor or shields if you got something like that. And when this guy reaches his prime rank, he gets ignore overwatch. Not the greatest. I kind of wish that there was a different prime rank that went with this unit that made him a little bit more viable in the late game, but he's okay. He's not amazing, but yeah, keep that into consideration when you're buying your units. Okay, so the next unit we're going to talk about is the growth soldier bee, and like the worker bee, he is pretty easy to kill off. He only has 40 HP and 1 armor. Sure, that's 10 more HP than the worker bee, and he's going to get 2 more HP per level up, but ultimately that's not a lot for a tier 2 unit. What he specializes in is doing damage. This corrosive spit is very nice. Being able to destroy 1 point of armor multiple times in a turn with that repeating attack is incredibly useful. Having range 7 is just, yeah, that's like a really good way to soften up some of the tankier enemies that you'll be facing in the middle of the game. The sting attack, like with the worker bee, is life draining. It will heal your unit when you attack, but unlike with the worker bee, it doesn't cause an allergic reaction. I'm not entirely sure why this one is slightly worse than what the worker bee gets, but it is, and it's important that you don't think that you're going to be getting that allergic reaction when you buy this unit. He's more for dealing damage than applying status effects. When he gets to prime rank, he gets ignore overwatch, which honestly isn't that great for this unit. Just like with the worker bee, I wish there was a different ability or thing that comes with fully leveling up this unit, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't level him up. I think just having this guy in a couple of these guys in a battle will really help you deal damage to some enemies early enough that maybe you can get the upper hand. You can change yeah, the number of opponents that you have to face off against. You can give yourself a numerical advantage pretty easily using units like this. The next unit we're going to talk about is the Growth Vinebud, which is a plant unit. It's the first one or the cheapest one that you can buy from the Growth. The plants are all amphibious, which means that they don't have to disembark or embark when they are going from land to water or from water to land, meaning that if you get a lot of these units, you can start clearing out some of the locations on the ocean without actually researching water tech. You can also go scouting with this unit and maybe some flying units off in a distance and be relatively safe because they aren't dealing with any of the penalties for being embarked on water. He is still pretty easy to kill off with only 45 HP and 1 armor. He specializes in spawning these vine sprouts. It's not really a direct damage unit. If you want, you can use him to do some melee attacks, but I'd rather just keep him back and spawn in a little tiny vine sprout every 3 turns. They're not very strong, but the fact that you can just keep bringing them into the fight means that this unit, the Vinebud, is a very good unit to try and bring into those larger fights that might last, more than 10 turns. If a battle's going to go on for 9 turns, you can summon in 3 vine sprouts, which are okay. They're not that good. I think we can find their stats out just by bringing one in like this. Yeah, let's just get one of you right here. And I'll take a second to look at what you got. No armor, no defense, only 12 HP, a little bind slash, which can entangle, just like the unit that spawned it. He gets the ability to entangle. He gets tunneling, which the other one does not. And yeah, because he's a little spawn, he's gonna disappear at the end of combat. You can't generate new units like that. Let's check out what entangle says, because entangle's a pretty cool effect. I do like it quite a bit. Entangle. This is crushing entanglement. Just entangled means that they cannot move, but they can still perform actions. So they can attack or heal or use those abilities, but they can't move away from your units if you get up close and entangle them with either the vine sprout or the Vinebud. All plants have a little bit of resistance to arc damage and a little bit of weakness to thermal damage, so I think they complement machine units pretty well. Machine units usually have a weakness to arc damage, so having these guys in a stack that has some machine units isn't completely useless. It actually complements them pretty nicely. The last thing I think we haven't talked about is this defense mode, which doesn't make this unit harder to hit. A lot of the defense modes make them like 25% harder to hit or 50% harder to hit, but instead of that you get 6 healing and +2 armor and stagger immunity. Since it has stagger resistant, having stagger immunity could be kind of nice, but to be completely honest, I prefer the ones that make it harder for targets to be hit in the first place. But like I said earlier, this guy's not for doing damage himself, he's more for spawning in units. Oh, I did forget to mention that he comes with Shrug Off when he reaches Prime rank, which I think makes it harder for status effects to affect him. Yeah, resistance against, +3 resistance against all status effects. And I think all of the plants actually get that. It's kind of interesting how they share that all in common. The next unit we're going to talk about is the Growth Flowering Node, who is actually a little bit tanky. It's the first one with any shields. He's got 1 armor and 3 shields, as well as 60 HP, which is kind of interesting because all of its attacks are ranged, so it actually doesn't need to get too close to the action to actually being useful, but if it does, it's not the end of the world. It's got some defensive values to help keep it alive. I really like that this one right here, this attack is repeating and has a range of 7, because that means you can keep him pretty far back. But if somebody does close the line, you got this noxious pollen, which you can use every 3 turns to attack people in a 1 hex area. I love AoEs and just being able to attack a lot of people if they are closing the line. Maybe applying poison and allergic pollen, or rather an allergic reaction, to a bunch of units is very, very nice, incredibly useful. This allergic spray can cause an allergic reaction, but it can't poison, so this has that on top of the AoE effect as an advantage. This is repeating, so it can do maybe potentially more damage to a single target, but this is a better attack, hence why it's on a cooldown of 3 turns. I'm not too experienced with mind control in this game, so I'm not too sure if this is a good mind control or a bad mind control. Being able to use it once every 4 turns sounds pretty useful, but with the way mind control works in this game, it sounds like the units disappear at the end of combat. So if I try to mind control somebody here and I win the fight, I don't actually get to keep that unit like in Age of Wonders 3. I think there are some things that work like Age of Wonders 3, the mind control in Age of Wonders 3, but not this attack. This one, I just tested it when I brought this forward and mind controlled him. Yeah, you can destroy that, cool. And won the fight, it just didn't work. He was he disappeared at the end of the combat. Kind of disappointing, kind of sad, but yeah, if we look at down here at the other things that are listed, skills, ability, stats, whatever you want to call them, he's very similar to the Vinebud. He's got, you know, 2 thermal weakness, 2 arc resistance, defense mode, plant mode, yeah, heavy unit. And if you look up here, his prime rank is the ability you get is the exact same. It's also shrug off, so there's not a lot else to say about him other than, you know, he's basically a ranged version of the Vinebud. I did just notice that the flowering node has large target and the Vinebud does not, so he is a little bit easier to hit with ranged attacks and can count as cover for other units. The next unit we're going to talk about, the Growth Seed Cluster, is pretty similar to the last 2 plant units. Like the flowering node, he is a large target, making him a little bit easier to hit, and he can count as cover for other units. And he's got, you know, a little bit of thermal weakness, a little bit of arc resistance, the defense mode, plant roots. All of the plants have defense mode plant roots, but you know, large target is slightly different between this guy and the Vinebud. When he gets to his prime rank, he doesn't get anything special for, you know, being a tier 4 unit. He is just a plant, so he gets shrug off, making it harder for, you know, status effects to affect him. But what really makes him special is his ability to do some long range damage. This AoE right here is a little bit it's got a further range. It can hit a little bit further away than the one that the flowering node has. I think it comes at a cost of accuracy. You're going to lose accuracy, and also it's a repeating attack, so you get 3 attacks instead of 1. Let's jump back over to this guy to compare this AoE. This one hits in a 1 hex area but can only be used once. It's a single action. Whereas this guy, yeah, he's repeating, and it's quite good. It can stagger units, it can apply the allergic reaction. It doesn't apply poison, but it can also apply slow. That's different than the other ones. It has a cooldown of 1 turn, so you can't use it every turn, but you can use it pretty much, you know, every turn. Every other turn isn't that bad. It's definitely better than having to wait 3 turns like the flowering node has to do its big barrage. It's artillery strike essentially. Seed bomb is also pretty good. It doesn't hit multiple targets, but you don't need to hit multiple targets every turn. This will be able to take out quite a few units from far away, and having that extra accuracy means that you can prioritize something that you really want to take out. It doesn't have too many little like stats effects with it, but hey, you know, you can't get everything you want all the time. This is a nice little ability. It will allow you to heal up other units that are kind of hurt, although seeing as this guy can do as much damage as he can, you probably don't want to use this unless you're saving another seed cluster or something that's really you know, high tier, something that costs a lot to get in your armies and would be kind of hard to replace. Being able to regenerate 25% of your max HP at the start of your turn for 2 turns isn't terrible. So it's not like you should never do this. Being able to yeah, get that effect for 2 turns, I think is easy to overlook. If it was only for 1 turn, I'd be like, no, never use this. Go with mods. Mods will heal you up, and then you don't have to waste a turn doing this. But I could definitely see this coming in useful every once in a while. He doesn't have any extra HP when you compare it to the last unit, the flowering node. He does have a little bit more armor and less shields, so overall, I would say no more tanky. He's a little bit better at doing offensive damage, comes with a heal, but yeah, he's a pretty offensive focused unit. Okay, to look at the mods, I have restarted the combat with a couple pretty big differences. I've put on all the mods that I can onto these 4 units. They can only handle 3 mods from the growth faction, and this unit can actually handle all 4 of them, so I basically set it up so that this unit has one set of 3 that is a valid option, and this guy has a different set of 3, which I think is a slightly better option. There are, of course, a couple different permutations that you can take, but I think this is honestly the best option that you can take for your soldier bee. This worker bee here can only apply this mod to its attacks because it only has kinetic attacks. This one over here, he has an option to apply something else to it instead of the poison attack. He's got, I think, this one. Yeah, this unit has access to sprouting infestation because he has a biological attack, whereas the worker bee does not. The worker bee has to settle with those 3 attacks. Now, since this guy has a melee attack, he can have the poison glands. But because these 2 do not, they do not have access to the poison glands, they only have access to this weapon attack, the sprouting infestation. So there's no real decisions to be made when it comes to the plans. If you want to put on those growth faction mods, those are the ones that you have to go with. Now let's talk a little bit more about the poison glands themselves. The poison glands are able to apply poison and increase the damage potential of your abilities, but being able to do that at being able to apply poison at a 12 strength chance is pretty high. I believe that poison lasts for 3 turns and reduces morale as well as applying poison damage. I'm terrible at spelling. Hey, that's actually close. Alright, so yeah, he takes 5 points of biological damage and It's minus 200 morale for, I believe, 3 turns when that applies. Might be able to actually get this guy far enough forward to try and apply that. Nah, units are too far. Not a big deal. The next thing we're going to talk about are the euphoric spores, which increase the morale of this unit as well as any adjacent friendly biological units. All 3 of those things have to be true. If it's an enemy unit, they won't get morale. If they're not biological, they won't get morale, and they have to be right next to you to get that little bit of morale. This mod can only be applied to plants and bees, so if you want to kind of put a growth unit with another stack that's biological, this could really help that stack increase its overall morale and avoid any morale penalties. I do like having extra HP on this guy. Giving him, you know, a little bit of extra HP makes him quite a bit more useful in the back line. And if you combine that with the regeneration mod, this one right here, that's really, really good. I think we've said everything I wanted to about this one. Yeah, so we can start talking about the regeneration spores, which, just like the euphoric spores, can only go on plant and bees. So you may want to put it in other stacks, but you know, if you just keep that with other growth units, they're all biological. It's gonna probably be pretty effective if you put this on like 6 growth units and put them all in a stack together to wander around the map. I do like that this heals at the end of your turn. Some of them heal at the beginning of your turn, and some of them heal at the end of your turn. So this will yeah, this is a good way to keep your guys going, to get yourself a little bit of XP or HP at the end of a turn. I think this applies before anything like a poison or burning on your unit, so I think that can keep you alive from those little status effects. And yeah, we're ready to talk about the last mod now, which, yeah, it increases your overall damage by 30%. That's pretty cool. But the selling point here is that you can spawn in a vine sprout every time a unit dies with the sprouting infestation. They can create the same unit that this guy can create. They can create this one right here. And I think they keep the mods of the guy who spawned them. This guy's kept the mods from over here, and I think if you apply, you know, sprouting infestation, they'll get the mods of the enemy unit you attacked. Seems pretty cool, right? At least in concept. It's also kind of nice that this deals 8 points of damage until the end of combat. There's no time limit on it, so yeah, this is an amazing tier 4 mod. I am not a giant fan of some of the earlier ones, like the poison glands are okay, pretty nice. Euphoric glands are kind of situational. I'm a big fan of the regeneration spores, and I really love this ability to just throw in extra units here and there. And yeah, that's it for the mods. Now we're ready to talk about the doctrine, which you can buy from the growth faction. The verdant growth doctrine is really good. Some of the NPC faction doctrines are not very impressive, and some of them are amazing. I would say this is in the middle, leaning towards the better side, because getting extra food is super powerful. It's less useful in the late game. It'll allow you to support more population, but you know, happiness is the real limiting factor in the late game when it comes to population. This, yeah, will help you grow a lot faster in the early game, but it's not so great in the late game. I really like the spacer doctrine in the late game. Getting energy for every enemy killed is super good. I believe the automatons give you some extra production, which is really good all throughout the game. And the Paragon give you a pretty situational doctrine, for going to war, and a scyfish can make some of your colonies a little bit happier. I'd say having extra food is definitely better than being able to go to war like whenever you want and getting a little bit of extra happiness, but not nearly as good as extra production or a little bit of extra energy in the late game. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about in this beginner's guide. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, to subscribe, to share the video. All that kind of stuff really helps grow the channel. And yeah, if you got any thoughts on what you'd like to see me cover in the near future, I'm almost out of ideas for these beginner's guides, and I'm thinking I might start doing some advanced discussions, not once a week, but maybe like once a month or so. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Hope to see you around for the next one.